what's your lead edge right now, Anthony? Then what are you discovering, or and sort of related question, where do you think the breathwork world is going?
Well, I think there's some danger. I think it's going to need regulation because there are a lot of sprouts coming up that are not being tended too well. So I think one needs some caution when one views the thing as a whole and be selective. But my own edge right now, I'm actually looking for a new one. My last 5 years has been really devoted to, as I said, applied breath work and a lot of shadow work and a lot of inner child work. And I think what I'm understanding is that, I said this morning in a class, the amount of time it takes for us to come back to normal after we've been triggered by something or somebody that said something seems to be the same as the amount of distance we have to travel to recover that inner child that we left behind somewhere. It's like that time. Sometimes it takes days if you've been upset by something. You just like your stomach's all turning. And
why are you still upset about that, Mark? Come on, you read the email 3 hours ago. What are you? We're having dinner. Why are you still talking about it? Let it go. You know?
Yeah, exactly. There's another ones where you get the email and you just want to reply, and you start, and then you're hovering over the send button, and should I? Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, and you just entered the greatest argument you ever lost, because you pressed it.
I did one of those yesterday. Really shouldn't have done it. Should have just left it 5 minutes, calm down. I wouldn't have sent it. But
So that's a pretty current topical subject for me. I've been researching a short process I've been doing. It takes about 40 minutes and 20 to 40 minutes. And it's about recovery of parts of the self. And it's going to go out there in a book, I hope, next month or the month after. I'm a bit like you. The book is written, but I think I'm on my 13th edit, and I have to keep adding a chapter each time. So my designer, Matt, God love him, he's so patient. Every time he does a design for me, 2 weeks later, I've got an updated version because I thought you and I probably just wait. But it's part of the process, isn't it? Teaching, writing, designing memes, whatever it is, it's part of the process of creativity. I have to think out loud or think out external and then go, it doesn't quite work and we can improve that. So we need to wrap up fairly soon, but what about breath holds? How do you feel about that? Some people seem to be very big on them, holding on the out breath, holding on the in breath. Any kind of wisdom or thoughts on that? I think they're great. I think they're wonderful. And I use them all the time. And the classic one is the Wim Hof breath. There's another breath that I've found called the Combustion Breath that we do that with too, where we do a similar breath hold to Wim Hof's, but it's a slightly different breath pattern. It's all about exporting. There's an incompatibility about breath work. If you read a book like The Oxygen Advantage by Peter, can't remember his name, Oxygen Advantage, you can Google it. It's a book about high altitude training, which says that we breathe too much through the mouth naturally anyway. We actually get less oxygen in the brain if you breathe through the mouth or for too long. And so this is all about breathing through the nose. And one of the big takeaways from that book is, especially if you're going to need stamina and you're exerting yourself, breathe through the nose. Don't breathe through the mouth. Instead of panting, breathe through the nose and you can last longer. Then the other side of the scale is the whole rebirthing and holotropic breathwork movement, which says we're going to breathe through the mouth and we're going to understand and learn to think in different ways. And I'm now booking a call to speak to a man called Peter Litchfield, Dr. Peter Litchfield over in the States, because he's studied this physiologically and he's a doctor. I'm curious to know if you get less oxygen in the brain, which is what the high altitude trainers say happens when you breathe through your mouth, does that actually make you more creative? In other words, is there a cage in the brain, the sort of the structure of neuron pathways that we've created, does it become a rusty architecture which doesn't permit us freedom anymore? That I earlier called that hypnotic stupor that we live in. Is it possible that by actually shortening the oxygen supply a little bit to the brain, that we can hop out of our neuron pathways and start to think more with our body, for example? I mean, we know 80% goes from the heart up to the head and 20% goes from the head to the heart. So why don't we listen to the heart a little more? What would that look like instead of, so there's some interesting inquiry there to follow up on.
I think we don't yet have a sort of unified field theory, right? Like that's Patrick McEwen, I think it is, the Oxygen Advantage, in that there's some counterintuitive stuff here as well, right? Like, carbon dioxide, that sounds bad. That's a waste gas. But actually, it's carbon dioxide that slows our heart rate down, isn't it? It might lead you to, I've been using a blood oxygenating device. And as the oxygen level goes down, the carbon dioxide level, my heart rate's half of what it normally is. And I think, okay, that could be quite restful. That could be quite positive for me. So you might think, there's lots of carbon dioxide. That's a bad thing, but not necessarily, right? Some of this is a bit counterintuitive.
Yeah. Exactly. That we're on the front line here. I call the breath a miracle because it's our life source, right? It's referred to in every religious script in a fantastical way. But we're still on the eve of discovery of what it can do. And 30 years ago in India, they were having dogs sniff your breath to find out if you had cancer. 60 years ago, we were taking alcohol breath tests if you were driving, right? The big breath tests that the Brits had over here. Now we're beginning to understand that we may have an instant system of diagnosis because most of our toxins come through our breath. So it's kind of like taking your car in to get it. There was no old, in the old days, the guy would put his ear to the engine, but now he plugs something in and he looks on the gauges and, you put it on the exhaust pipe. But now they've got it electronically sorted. But it's kind of like that we could learn to read our breath as a way to find out our health. And there are many, many interesting tests like diabetes, Helicobacter pylori, a parasite, advanced warning of heart attacks. There are many different things that are available through the breath. So, but we're just at the dawn of understanding how big it's going to be.
And this, I think this is another feature of the modern versus the 70s, is the sort of bringing together of the scientific with the experiential, spiritual, and then being interested in those two things rather than sort of having to pick a team. That integration, I think, is key. This has been great. I've really enjoyed this, Anthony. I hope we get to talk again. I'm sure we will. I'll be seeing you on the breath day for the for next week, so I'll get this one out quickly, actually, so we get out ahead of that. And looking forward to seeing you at the Embodiment Conference. I'm going to come to your Sunday free online class, I think, as well. That sounds like give that a little bit of a taster. You might be seeing more of me in the future. I've promised myself I'm going to complete the 2 online courses I'm doing before I buy any more. But this has certainly been a pleasure. So a couple of things to finish. Where do people find you online? Where do they go?
You can find me at alchemyofbreath.com. That's my main website. And you could register for the Sunday Breathes there. They're free. They've been doing them for 4 years now, every morning at 9 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. and 5 p.m. UK time. And come and join us. There are about usually 200 to 300 people that we breathe together. It's a great little community. And you can find out more about us on the website, really, why we do this, what the passion is, what our purpose is, what our vision is, and how we do it too. We have a training academy. We bring facilitators out into the world every 3 months. We've got a new bunch of facilitators coming out. So
really enjoyed your sort of down-to-earth vibe around this. Sometimes people are a bit evangelical about breath work, and I've just been enjoying the vibe.
Well, because I consider myself a bit evangelical. So if you're saying I wasn't, that's great.
Well, there's a difference between someone being passionate and someone trying to convince you. You know what I mean? On the podcast, I hear both. And there's a subtle difference in tone between someone that loves what they do and is enthusiastic about sharing it, because why wouldn't you? And someone that's sort of selling an angle. You know what I mean? And there is a subtle difference, and I feel you can feel it. Listeners will probably hear the difference, actually, between the two groups if they listen in with their bodies. Final message about the body, Anthony. Anything you want to say? Sort of final closing message.
The body is our archive. It has a memory of every single thing that ever happened to us. So what would it look like to open that archive, especially with a breath practice, and inquire as to what messages there might be? May we all become more sensitive to understand that the pains that we feel are late warning systems. What would the early warning systems be like, the early awareness systems that are in the body? So that would be my wish, that we could all learn more about that.
Boom, I love it. Should we take a breath together to finish?
Yeah, all right.
Follow your lead.
Wow.
Anthony, total pleasure, man. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you very much, Mark, and blessing.